That's right, everybody. It's Thursday. At least I think it's Thursday.
It is.
Mace, I hope it's Thursday. Let's count us down. Let's get some music here going. And let's do a show. How about that? How's that sound, Mace?
I like it. Sounds good.
Yeah, man. Orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, and Andrew Mason doing our thing. Talking Denver Broncos. And starting out with a news item that we were not expecting. So let's jump into it here for the fans and for the crowd. I will shut off our rock music. I will turn our graphics back on. Sorry, I'm speaking and doing things at the same time. Don't ask me to chew gum and ride a bicycle. But Mace, I'm going to read from our report. In denversports.com, it was 9 News that broke it initially. Broncos wide receiver Josh Reynolds shot twice after leaving Shotgun Willie's last Friday, and a back of the head shot and then a leg shot. This is from KUSA's website. Details that after 3 a.m. on October 18th, multiple calls came in of a shooting near it's at Shotguns. The documents acquired by 9 News say that Reynolds was shot twice, once in his left arm, and then once in the back of the head. They also say another man was shot in the back, and a third victim was wounded by shattered glass. All 3 had scrapes from climbing over the fence. The document says essentially they were stalked, and then they were essentially hunted after they left the club. And we are very fortunate this isn't a much worse news story than it is today, Mace.
Yeah, very fortunate. I mean, he's been at the Broncos facility all week. He's been watching practice. He was treated and then released. I mean, this could have been an unfathomable tragedy for Josh Reynolds and the Denver Broncos. You're thankful that he's okay. What is interesting, there is one report out there saying it may not increase his time on injured reserve. Of course, that's why he wasn't with the team last week, because on IR, it's sometimes you travel, sometimes you don't, depends on the situation. So that's he was over there, but yeah, just man, first things first. You're just glad he's okay.
Yep.
The football stuff kind of comes after that, but I mean, man, just miraculous that we're not talking about something worse regarding Josh Reynolds,
especially with the shot in the back of the head. Yeah. And I do believe, and maybe my memory's off a little bit, I think I saw him yesterday in the locker room. Now we can't talk to players on IR, so
I saw him. Yeah.
We're like, hey, too. Josh, we can't say anything. And no bandage on the head or anything like that. But it was this was a shock, Mace. You and I were standing in the locker room today, and you were like, holy, you know what? And we started reading the story on your phone from 9 News. And again, I'm just so thankful this wasn't much worse.
Yeah. I mean, you hope he's okay mentally as well, because this is the sort of thing. I mean, you're happy to survive, but it's the sort of thing that can have an impact on that. So hopefully if he's got any trauma he's dealing with from this, hopefully he's getting, the support that he needs right now. But I mean, my goodness, just when this came down, this was a shock to learn about this afternoon.
Yeah.
But again, the key thing is he's okay, and the Broncos should get him back here at some point in the near future. He's on recallable injured reserve. He's eligible to come back. I believe next week, if I'm not mistaken, or not next week, the week after. So he's eligible to come back for the Kansas City game. The fact that he's been around the team all week, I mean, that's the best possible sign coming out of something like this.
Yeah, and the Broncos did release a statement about Josh Reynolds. And before I get to that statement, as the page is loading for me, Mace, again, I tell you everything. My mind immediately went to Jarrett Williams and just the gut punch that was for that young man that you and I were both around, and such a energy in that locker room from him. And then I actually woke up that morning and heard Mark Schlereth talking about it on The Fan, and just how that impacted that team. You and I've talked about Javon Walker. Like, we are so very lucky it wasn't that sort of situation. Unfortunately, we've seen that situation here before.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's everyone's mind goes there when you think about something like this with the Broncos. You know, it was obviously tragic losing Jarrett Williams. And you mentioned the team. That team, that core, that team was never the same.
Yep.
And you can say a lot of things that declined over the following years. You can kind of point a straight line to, I think, the cloud that was over the organization for quite a while after that, understandably so. So, yeah, I'm just glad we're talking about Josh Reynolds returning to the field in a few weeks. That's, I think, that is, I think, not that you want anything like this to happen, but that's the best. It was the best possible outcome for Josh Reynolds and the Broncos.
Right. And the Broncos statement is this. It's merely this short statement. Josh Reynolds was a victim of a shooting on Friday in Denver and received treatment for minor injuries. Out of respect for the legal process, we will defer further comment on this matter to the authorities. And last I checked, Mace, and this is a breaking story, and there's things changing, but 2 suspects have already been arrested, but they're still looking for more to arrest, as well as, basically Reynolds was stalked and hunted by these gentlemen that, wanted the worst here.
Is that what you're saying, or is that what the report is saying?
As far as what, the stalking?
Yeah.
Like, the report is they were stalking him.
Okay.
So, and again, a couple arrested now.
In the criminal report, you mean? Because I don't. Yeah, I didn't see that in the original report that I read.
Okay. Well, either way, it's bad.
Yeah.
Either way, it's bad news.
Yeah.
We know this was, it's not an incident that we want to talk about. Again, we had a completely different show planned, literally minutes before we saw this news, but we know this is what Broncos country is talking about it. And, we will continue to wish Josh Reynolds the best. And, we'll know more when a criminal investigation is further extended here.
Yeah, really, probably not much more we can say right now, unfortunately, other than what we said. So,
yeah. And now the awkward transition to football. So we have Bo Nix out there today, and Joe Lombardi also talking. Nix was yesterday. But this situation with Bo Nix's footwork is something that Joe Lombardi was asked about. Mace, you want to set this up, or you want me to play the clip of Lombardi talking about Nix's feet?
Let's just play the clip.
Okay, here it is.
I think every play has a rhythm to it, and you start running all these plays on air, where there's no defense, and so you groove your footwork into that, and then the receiver gets jammed. Maybe you got to hang a little bit, and so there's just experience that comes with that, with having your feet set. But I think one of the challenges we talked earlier, that he avoids sacks, and so just grooving in the footwork with the ability to escape and not be stuck in the pocket if something breaks down. Those are all works in progress, but I think with experience, all that will get better.
Okay. Once again, we're talking about rhythm when it comes to Bo Nix and his feet, which is true, Mace. But as you and I have pointed out, there are still times he's either throwing off his back foot or his front foot. And that's not necessarily rhythm. It's the off platform when he extends the plays. His feet need to be as good as possible there too.
Well, they need to be as good as possible when it's off platform. But the distressing thing and the worrisome thing on Bo Nix is the footwork isn't there when he's got time to throw, when he's able to actually step into his throws and do so, with precision. And so that's something that it does concern you. It's something that Sean Payton did talk about earlier on this week. And you always say the feet lead the eyes. Everything starts from there. And if if you don't get the footwork right when it's a clean pocket, you're going to miss on some gimmies. And that the play to Lucas Kroll left side, that was kind of a gimme, wide open swing. You got to have swing. You got to have. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every quarterback in the league should be able to hit that. Mm-hmm. So doesn't mean he won't hit that in the future, but it shows that there's there's some growth to do. I mean, he's a rookie quarterback finding his way. He's not doing as well as Jaden Daniels, but he's doing better than a fair amount of rookie quarterbacks that have come before him. So
sure. Yeah.
I think it's almost like there's an unfamiliarity with the process of bringing a young quarterback along and what it entails.
Yep.
It's messy. And I think, and I get that there's impatience around here because of 7 straight losing seasons, but this is, it's not going to be a straight line in terms of progress. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't good things happening. And one good thing that is happening is the Broncos are largely avoiding the kind of back-breaking mistakes that sunk the passing game last year. He's not taking negative plays when it comes to getting sacked, and he hasn't. And his interceptions are not out of control. When he's not putting the ball on the ground, he's not fumbling it either. So and that, I think, and it's something that Joe Lombardi alluded to today. That's something that kind of gives you a higher floor, as it were. If you're talking about the quarterback, okay, he doesn't have everything right, but he's avoiding the mistakes that really put you behind the 8 ball for the most part. Doesn't mean it's perfect. I mean, you look back at the Charger game right there on the first possession, a play that's go back to the footwork, right? Footwork isn't right on that play, and he misses Marvin Mims Jr. down the middle, and the Chargers are off and rolling. So it's not perfect, but by and large, you are seeing fewer mistakes, especially when you factor in the sacks than you saw last year.
And if you were to have a checklist of bad things, right? Interceptions, fumbles, not reading the field, bad footwork is bad. I'm not saying that it's not, but it's a little bit lower down that list compared to what we could be seeing in some kid out there who the game's too big for him, right? He's throwing a bunch of picks. He doesn't see the rush. Like, none of those things are happening. And if it's nitpicking, so be it. But that's what Nix needs to improve on. And that also comes with the timing and the rhythm of this offense. But Joe Lombardi talked about Nix avoiding sacks, Mace, and I think it's an important clip for everyone to listen to.
Yeah, I think it's rare, but I think it's in the scouting process of the quarterbacks, man, that's what stood out to me with the player is that he was tough to sack. He didn't take a lot of sacks, and he didn't turn the ball over a lot. And I think if you can start with that as a quarterback, man, it's those are 2 really big building blocks that you can build off of. And so I think it was part of his play style in college, and happy that it to this point has been transferring over to his NFL career so far. I think it's so much goes into that, not throwing interceptions, not taking sacks, and I think there's a saying that sacks is a quarterback stat more than an offensive line stat, and I think with him that's certainly, the offensive line's blocking well, don't get me wrong, but his ability to avoid those is huge.
Sounds like what Jonah Ellis told us.
Yeah. Well, the other thing also on the sacks being quarterback stat, that's something you've heard from Sean Payton as well. There's a very strong belief of that. It's a reason why Russell Wilson's no longer a Denver Bronco. Is because a lot of the sacks were on him, adjudged to be that way by the coaching staff. So they were looking for change. So you start there by being able to be on schedule more because he avoids the sacks. And thus, when you get the footwork cleaned up, when the accuracy comes in and we start talking about hopefully his accuracy approaching the types of numbers that he has or that he had at Oregon, then you got something that works. And then you got an offense that's operating on rhythm, on schedule, on time, which is what you're hoping for. Nix cools down after halftime. Is that really the case? It seems like he's, at least as of a couple weeks ago, he had better numbers in the second half than the first half.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree
and maybe
with that.
it's calms down. I would agree with that. Mike
Maybe.
said that the
Yeah.
next chat rooms. He said once Bo gets to know the opposition, he settles in. Why his second half is always better. I think instead of cools down, it should be calms down. I think his mind is a little, not necessarily nervous or frantic or anything, but it's a lot on his plate. And in the second half, he seems to, calm down a bit, play better.
He gets adjusted to what he's seeing. I think that's a key thing as well. And it's a good attribute for him going forward that he's adjusting to what the opponent is throwing at him and he's making those adaptations. The other thing also is, and I think we may see more of this going forward, there is a confidence that comes with the ability that he has on the ground. And it's like I noted last week and even asked a question to Bo Nix about this after the game last Thursday. When the passing game when the rhythm isn't there, the ability to get explosives with his legs, that's something that can allow the entire offense to get back on its feet. So you look at that first possession, for example, and the Broncos ended with a punt, but Bo Nix did some nice work with his legs on that drive. They got a couple of first downs. So it was a kind of opening possession that isn't obviously all that you wanted, but you did some good things. And I feel like when Nix was able to do things on the ground, the next possession, he looked a lot more settled. It's almost like he built confidence from the fact that he was able to make an explosive play on the ground. And so that's why I mean, as long as he's careful, I don't want him sliding into contact. But as long as he's careful, knows discretion is the better part of valor, get out of bounds, get slid, protect yourself, then run, Bo, run. Fine with it.
Yeah, that's fine. He's a rookie. He can make plays that way. And Joe Lombardi on Nix making things easier. Let's set this one up, Mace. I didn't listen to the full clip as you and I were in the locker room, but Lombardi talked today. Do you have something to set it up for? Because Nix making things easier, I think, is something all coaches would love, right?
Well, it's making things easier on the play calling, and this comes back to it comes back to not taking sacks, right? Because not many play callers have a play for 3rd and 22. But everyone's got a play call for 3rd and 10. You can work with that. 3rd and 22, there's not a lot you can do except hope. Or, chuck it deep, try to get a PI or hope that there's a missed tackle, there's a coverage bust, whatever. It's not necessarily on you, it's what the opponent concedes and what the opponent can't do. 3rd and 10, it's still about what you do. You got to everyone has a solution for 3rd and 10, and so that's part of what makes it easier. If you're not dealing with those extreme negative situations in terms of down and distance because you're not getting sacked, it makes things more effective for the play caller like Sean Payton. Let's hear from Joe Lombardi on this.
I think a lot easier. I mean, I think Sean said it. As a play caller, I think when you feel you don't have to call the perfect play for the quarterback, sometimes it's like, all right. He took a sack there, but man, maybe we weren't open as fast as we were hoping, and it puts pressure on you when you feel like the quarterback's going to get you in a bad situation if you haven't called the perfect play, and he's going to avoid the big mistakes. You can be a little more aggressive.
So it's not just avoiding the bad situation; it's also about the ability to do things beyond structure.
Yep,
Bo Nix can bail you out. He can bail you out with his legs. And he can bail you out by throwing on the move. We've seen that from time to time, too.
Right. Yeah. It's all there with Bo. And the thing about him spreading it around, too, I'll get to that in just a second. But I said today earlier, Mace, something very devastating to some. I will say it now again today. I don't want to believe anymore. I want to know Bo's the guy. So it's week 8. Look at you smile. Look at that, Andrew Mason smile. I don't want to believe because believe is not a strategy, right? I want to know Bo's the guy. So if he's making the throws like he could have made to Kroll against New Orleans, if we see some more of those, again, we don't need it all now, baby. We don't need it all now. But now is the time where we turn the page and we say, all right, Bo, just a little more each game, a little bit more. And by week 17, after 17 games have been played, week 18, I want to be able to say, I know Bo's the guy.
Well, I still kind of view things in 16 games, right? Because that's what the regular season was for so long.
Yes, we're halfway there.
We hit the halfway point of a 16-game season on Sunday. I think 8 games, I think we'll get into this next week. 8 games is a good time for the first progress report. What's good, what's bad, where does he stack up with other quarterbacks across the eras in terms of the progress that he's made? Barring a disaster on Sunday, the record should be good if you're focused on that, but wins aren't a quarterback stat. Other things are going on, and certainly while Bo Nix is contributing to the success by not getting sacked, by making sure things don't fall off schedule, is he able to elevate that? I think that's sort of the next stage here, is that he needs to get to where there's an elevation of what's around him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to come with being more accurate. That the path to him elevating the entire offense is having that sort of precision, especially in the pocket, that he had in college. That was a reason why you liked him so much coming out of the draft as the Denver Broncos. You liked him because he didn't take sacks. We keep hearing that over and over, but you also liked him because he was accurate and on rhythm and on point and could execute this scheme and throw to the open player, which can change in terms of who's emphasized from game to game. So these are the things that you want to see going forward, that I would argue are at least as important as wins and losses for the team, because ultimately this organization is going to go where Bo Nix can take it.
Yes, it is. And Mace, I have to ask you a question that is very philosophical, but I think it's very important to this conversation. And first, on the whole believe versus know.
Yeah.
Believe requires faith. Knowing requires, we've seen it, information, right? And it's not about dogma or intent. It's about action. Now it's time to see Bo do more of the action port, not the I think he can do it. I know he can do it.
I'm an evidence-based person.
Let's see it, Bo.
Let's see it.
And I'll say this, and this is where it's philosophical. This is so fantastic. Only you and I can have this conversation. When is a rookie not a rookie? You know what I mean? And that's part of it. You could say it's the whole season, right? But Riley Moss, I considered Riley Moss a rookie in his second year because he barely played as a rookie. Jail Skinner, I considered a rookie to start this year because he barely played as a rookie, even though he was there for practices and he was there participating and he was behind the scenes. He was putting in the work. I think a lot of us need to think, when is a rookie not a rookie? Because there'll be a time when Bo's not a rookie. And I'm not saying it's as an excuse. And again, we support Bo Nix. We believe in Bo Nix. But it's time to start seeing him give us more evidence to know that he'll be the guy.
Can we say that maybe it's already started to happen that he's not a rookie? And maybe you want an example of evidence. This is obviously a top line number. But since week 2, Bo Nix has accounted for 7 touchdowns and 1 turnover.
Whew.
The interception to Marvin Mims early in the Chargers game is the only time he's turned the ball over in the last 5 games.
That one got tipped, right?
Yeah.
Top of my head, it got tipped.
I think so.
Yeah, tips and overthrows. Got to get those.
Yes. So bit by bit, it started to happen, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we get more and further down the road, that's he'll be less than, it's like when you grow up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty soon, you're going to be very immature. At some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, you're just going to be mature and you put your younger ways behind you. Training horses, Mace, we'd always say a colt was young in the mind.
Yes.
Right? Really good athletic ability from this horse, but he's young in the mind. You got to work on his mind.
Yep.
With Bo Nix, he's getting to that point where it's like, all right, we can start expecting more. It doesn't mean we're going to lose our mind if he throws a couple of picks. Nobody's here for that. But we're here to watch this young man with great interest.
And we have to be patient.
Yep.
I mean, like with Drew Lock, he had 17 games before you kind of started. At least me, 17 games before you started saying, okay, like what's next here? What can you justify? If Bo Nix stays healthy, hopefully he'll get those 17 this year. And then after the season, I think you make kind of another progress report on it. And then you really kind of make some decisions. You say, okay, where's he going? But then you also kind of look at the arc of things. Like with Drew Lock, for example, you look back and he had a great performance in his second start, and he had a great performance toward the end of his second season against Carolina on the road. But you didn't see the trend line going overall in the right direction. Again, there's going to be bumps along the way, fluctuations, but you still want a general incline, right? What we're starting to see from Bo Nix is that general incline happening. Doesn't mean he's not going to have some bad games here, but if we continue to see growth on top of growth, brick on top of brick, I think we're going to be looking at the end of this season and maybe seeing in Bo Nix a quarterback who is a reason why the Broncos are winning games. Right now, he's kind of a passenger on this bus. Are there going to be games down the stretch this year where he drives the bus? Wouldn't surprise me if there are.
Sure. Another way that we have evidence of Bo Nix growing from being a rookie is the fact that he spreads it around. And Bo talked about this, and I think it's important for everyone to listen because spreading around is kind of what he does.
We're doing a good job of spreading the ball out, throughout, the offense. A lot of guys are getting touches, and some guys, at times get a lot. Some guys don't get many, and then the next game it feels like it flips. So I think that part's good because the defense doesn't necessarily know who we're targeting. Anybody's up for the ball on any given play, but all position groups we're going to continue to get better and work, and then could have some stuff happen for us in the future.
I like that. I like spreading it around. Too. That's more advanced quarterbacks do that. He is a first-year player. He is a rookie, and he's already doing that. And he's right. It does keep defenses guessing. Do they need better weapons? Yes. That grocery list, we talked about that after practice, Mace. We know what's on the list. You need the eggs and the bread and the milk. So we know it's going to be there.
But part of what you're finding out in the next 9 games or 10 games, and hopefully more, because hopefully you do sneak into the playoffs, is what items do you not have to go shopping for, right? What do we already have in the storeroom in the back of the shop? What do we have to go out and get?
Mm-hmm.
What's in the pantry? What's at the store? Let's find out if Devon Vele is someone in the pantry who you can work with. I mean, Vele led the team in receiving yards against the Chargers. Troy Franklin led the team in receiving yards against the Saints. Javonte Williams led the team in receiving yards against the Raiders. Right? You see a pattern happening here?
Mm-hmm.
Courtland Sutton led the team in receiving yards against the New York Jets.
Lucas Kroll would have if he had hit him.
Yeah.
Although Kroll had a nice game. Would have been even nicer with that 45-yard touchdown.
Best pass catching game from a Broncos tight end we've seen. That's why he's in the lineup. That, and again, not the most effective blocker. You and I have talked about the moment in practice and during training camp where Mike McGlinchey got in his grill a little bit, but there's a willingness to get in there and mix it up.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, he has a long way to go as a blocker, but sometimes it's just about being a willing blocker, getting your body in there, rather than Greg Dulcich. I mean, that Jets game, he was just whiffing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a coincidence that the change happened after the Jets game. That was performance based, and it was performance based in that he has to be a plus player as a pass catcher to make up for the deficiencies as a blocker, and he simply did not do that to a degree where he could stay in the lineup. And Lucas Kroll has been more productive as a pass catcher since coming in for Greg Dulcich. I mean, yeah, is it tearing up the world? No, but 57 yards on 6 catches is a lot more than 28 yards on 5 catches. And Dulcich had one more game to do that. He played 4 games. Kroll's played 3. So
Yep.
Kroll's heading in the right direction. He's another guy that I watch with great interest. Lawrence asking, is Bo's footwork as bad as Drew's?
I would say no, but Drew threw it off his back foot almost all the time. Like,
Yeah.
Bo has proper footwork sometimes. Drew, it was always because he had arm. He had the arm arrogance where he just back up and throw it off his back foot all the time.
Yeah, he could wing it. Drew could make up for very poor footwork as far as pro quarterback goes with a hose. I mean, that was, and the thing is, in college, you can get away with that. I think it was the Kansas City game in the snow, his third start, and it was and it was pass that got picked off, and he just kind of winged it. And I thought, man, I saw you get away with that at Mizzou a dozen times. This is the NFL, buddy. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of the reasons why with Drew, I'll go back to the stat that I love to talk about. He was 1 of 9 against top 25 teams in college. 1 out of 9. So,
less on win-loss, but one I remember is in his senior season, they were going against Kentucky, which had a real good defense, and Mizzou ends up losing the game at the end, and the Tigers didn't even get a first down in the second half. 1 first down would have maybe been enough to win in the game, and they couldn't. And he and the Mizzou offense couldn't do that. There were reasons why he fell into the second round. It wasn't just, this prospect, fell. Let's just, first round talent. Let's get him. No, there were a lot of reasons why he fell into round 2. There are also a lot of reasons why Bo Nix went in round 1. And if the Broncos had not done it, somebody else would have, as our friend Chad Ryder pointed out, the Rams were poised to take him.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it.
Yeah.
People love your hair, Mace.
I thought I'd have some leftover hat head because I was wearing a cap today, but no, we got it flowing right here. It looks good.
Yeah, man, it's good on camera. It's good for you. I still need to get you a beanie for the winter. Winter is coming, Mace. We're gonna be standing in snow next Wednesday.
Won't that be fun?
I'll tell you what's fun. Not tonight, unless you want to come tonight.
What?
But when you and I get to hang out at Nuggets games, that's going to be fun.
Okay, yeah, I gotta put that in. I gotta find a couple of nights here to join you out there and catch up on what's going on with the local hoopsters.
Next thing you know, I'll be going to some Rockies games with you next year.
And you'd be asking me all, what's this? Like, who's Brenton Doyle? Well, I'm glad you asked. Brenton Doyle's arguably the best defensive center fielder in the game right now, but I digress.
Well, and I didn't get to talk about it on Dover and Cecil. I'll bring it up here since you're a baseball guy. As a young Chicano, Fernando Valenzuela was one of my favorite players. I know nothing about baseball, right?
Yeah.
And as a kid, I actually had a Brewers hat. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the logo. But when I was
it is a great logo.
And during Fernando Mania was the last time we saw Dodgers and Yankees in the World Series, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
and I just want to say,
years ago.
And I know some people will poo-poo this or whatever, which is fine. You'll be all right, baby. We'll be fine. That's where representation matters, because as a young half brown kid, to see someone that looked like my Uncle Tony or my Uncle Junior, to see that out there, it was just really cool. And Fernando Mania, and God rest his soul, he passed away yesterday, I believe, Mace.
Yesterday, earlier this week.
Yes, earlier this week. Yeah, and you and I can have that sort of conversation because we're at the end of the show, and you're a baseball guy, and I loved watching him when I was really, really a little kid.
I'm glad you mentioned representation, because there was a picture I saw in the last few days of when Fernando Mania was a thing, and he was down in Mexico, and there was a young boy in a folk charo ensemble signing his autograph. I mean, he was more than just a picture. He was somebody who, who was a part of the cultural zeitgeist for a community that at that time, and really still is, not as represented in the popular culture vein as it should be.
He's the son of Mexican farmers.
Yes.
If you want to think anything can happen or talent can come from anywhere, Fernando Valenzuela was that guy.
And he was a joy to watch. And the way he went about playing, it's a game. The sports are supposed to be fun. There's supposed to be joy from it, right? Even if you lose a game, the joy of playing. Fernando had joy of playing and being around. I mean, even like he was doing Spanish language broadcasting, really, and until he died. He only stepped away a few weeks ago, right there as the playoffs were starting, which is why, unfortunately, you feared the worst. You feared the worst when that news came down a few weeks ago, and so sadly, it was not a surprise. But it's a shame he's not in the Hall of Fame, and I know the numbers say he's not a Hall of Famer, but this is like a beyond the numbers thing, a contribution to the culture, not just within baseball, but beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't write the history of baseball without writing about Fernando Valenzuela.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, Mace, we took a tough topic, and then we talked Broncos, and we finished with a salute to one of the finest baseball players that we got to watch.
Yeah,
more so than
love watching him as a kid. He just the joie de vivre that he had when he was out there on the mound. Like, if you were a kid watching it, man, it was just so infectious. How could you not love the guy?
Larger than life.
Then. Yes, I mean,
mm-hmm.
I got to see him pitch when he was still in his prime. I even got to see him pitch toward the end when his career ended with the St. Louis Cardinals, and it ended like a lot of careers end, not very well. But he had joy and dignity all the way through his career and beyond. Just a really, really special athlete and special person.
A hat tip to Fernando Valenzuela, a special little tribute here on Orange and Blue today. He is Andrew Mason. I am Cecil Lammey. Mace, we need some help on YouTube to pump up those subscriber numbers. How can people help us out on YouTube?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss vid.
That's right. Andrew Mason, Cecil Lammey, dynamic duo, dream team, if you will. OBT is a BFD. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned and stay frosty.